we're ready.
Okay. I would like to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know we didn't have some great weather yesterday. We had a bit of a storm, so hopefully nobody had any damage. But I really appreciate everybody coming out tonight. The Industrial Development Board started about 1.5 years ago trying to get hooked up with this company, for those of you who do not know, called Retail Strategies. Retail Strategies is a firm out of Birmingham, Alabama, and they specialize in bringing retail businesses to communities like ours, and they have done a lot of work for the surrounding communities, Gallatin, Lebanon, Nolensville, a lot of Middle Tennessee communities with great success. We have just reached our 1-year mark with them, and we're going into year 2. So basically what we're going to have tonight is a bit of a recap from some folks that are on the phone who helped us through the first year, and that is Elliott and Jen. And then after Elliott and Jen, and they're traveling, so they're in a car, so we don't have video, and we're going to try to hear them clearly. But when they get finished, Harris is leading the team for year 2 as they move into phase 2, and they're going to be focusing on luring franchise style businesses into our community, such as Domino's or Burger King's or Dollar Tree or things like that. It's not specific to food. That is, I think, that mostly in their wheelhouse, but it's not specific to food. So our endeavor here as the Industrial Development Board is to try to stimulate our local economy with jobs, choices for our consumers, but also to expand our tax revenue base so we can unburden our property owners a little bit and increase the revenue stream for our local government, affording us more options in the future for our community. So with that being said, I would like to introduce Jen and Elliott, Jen Gregory and Elliott Cook. They helped us with year 1 and the Downtown Strategies version. So if you would, Jen and Elliott, I would like for you guys to kind of summarize what you've done for us this year. I know you've helped us with a grant for wayfinding signs that we're pretty excited about. The mayor has the concepts here that you can show the group. But there's several other things that you've put together. And if you would just take over from that and give us a brief summary of what you've done.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much for having us this evening, Brian, and we're happy to be with all of you tonight. We apologize for not being on video. Like Brian said, we are traveling, but I'm Jen Gregory. I'm the president of Downtown Strategies and have with me my colleague, Elliott Cook, who is our director of real estate for Downtown Strategies. And so year 1 of this partnership between Retail Strategies, our parent company, and the IDB and the community in general was focused on downtown revitalization, where years 2 and 3 will be focused on national retail recruitment for the commercial corridors. So for year 1, we've had really a great opportunity to first be able to understand the community. We had a strategic visioning workshop in downtown Hartsville back in February, where we toured the downtown. We met with property owners and business owners to really understand what the unique opportunities are for the downtown area. After that, we put together a 5-year strategic plan. So that strategic plan has been presented, and from there, the remainder of our partnership in year 1 was really focused on getting some of those strategic recommendations off the ground in an implementation phase. And so the first element of implementation that our team took on was a real estate analysis. So Elliott really focused on identifying which properties downtown had the greatest potential for recruiting a local tenant or maybe finding a higher or better use tenant. Also identifying what some of the catalyst projects may be. And so Elliott and Brian and the mayor have had conversations ongoing about really how to work with property owners to activate some of those buildings and some of those properties. Also within the strategic plan, we identified kind of a customized toolkit of incentives. Really feel like there is some opportunity for the county to kind of come to the table and provide incentives for these property owners to either renovate their buildings and have some assistance with that, or a piece of policy that would encourage them to sell the property if they're not in a position to revitalize that property. So those incentives that we outlined are pretty robust and kind of run the gamut of standards to make sure that properties are being kept to a standard that is acceptable, and then also incentives to help them renovate those buildings. Next, we moved into a branding exercise. Part of our strategic plan really identified opportunities for tourism and how can we pull visitors and those travelers off the highway into the downtown area. And so wayfinding signage was identified as really the best strategy for getting that done. But as we started to identify the design for wayfinding, we realized that Hartsville really did not have a consistent brand, a logo, if you will. So our creative team put together several options and through feedback, created a logo for downtown Hartsville and for Hartsville in general. We worked with the mayor to incorporate that brand into street banners that he has been working on with local artists. So all of those have been fully designed and the brand incorporated in those banners, which we're thrilled about and excited to see those go up seasonally. And then in the stage that we're in now is related to the wayfinding signage. So we assisted the mayor with a grant application for about $55,000 that was successfully funded. And now we are working with a fabricator on getting the design for the wayfinding system into the system that the fabricators use for monument signage, pedestrian, vehicular, and parking signage. And so we are looking forward to getting some feedback from all of you, from Brian, your board, the mayor, so that we can move into getting pricing from that fabricator and ultimately getting those signs ordered and installed. So we've had a busy year, and while this is the end officially of year one, and we will be passing the baton over to Harris and her team for national retail recruitment, if the board and everyone is willing, we would like to stay on and provide assistance through this grant process. With, of course, no additional investment, but we really want to make sure that that project gets fully implemented, and we're excited to partner with you all through March when that grant will be fully processed. So that's just kind of a high-level overview of some of the implementation measures, the strategic plan, and the workshop that has taken place this year as it relates to downtown. And Elliott and I are very happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
I'll jump in as well. Hi, everyone. I'm Elliott Cook. I'm the director of real estate. And once again, to echo Jen's sentiments, I'm sorry that y'all can't see me. To back up just a little bit, the way that we were first introduced to Hartsville was through Tennessee ECD, and your community actually, Brian and Mayor Chambers, went through Retail Academy, kind of an intensive course on economic development in the term and the scope of retail back early on in the pandemic. And during that, I hosted that, and during that process, we identified some retail opportunities, and that's where Harris is going to be focusing in year two, is talking about some of those retail opportunities from the national retail standpoint. Currently, our team, many people from our company are in Las Vegas, Nevada at a national retail show, and they're talking to brokers and they're talking to retailers and real estate directors about communities just like yours, and yours is being represented. And there will be another one in May where Hartsville will be recruited for, and there will be conversations that are had. And that's already been ongoing over the last year plus. You know, I will tell you, as you all know, with McMurray Road and the expansion of it, there's a lot of interest in that area, as well as in the Broadway area, for national retail. Obviously, as road work is commencing and whatnot, a lot of retailers would like to see that come along before they open their business, and I'm sure you can understand that to a certain degree. But my role on downtown strategies, it was trying to identify the best opportunities for someone to open a business in the next 90 days or over the next year. And ultimately, you know, you have some really good retail vacancies, and you've actually seen some new businesses move in. I know you've seen some businesses, you know, close and whatnot as well, but you've seen some new businesses move into the downtown. So identifying where those kind of, you know, if I wanted to open a coffee shop or something like that in the next 90 days, where could I do it? And then ultimately as well, where are those kind of larger catalyst projects? Where are the things that are going to take historic tax credits and those things that are going to take someone to come in and pump, you know, a significant amount of capital to get that property back to code or back to modern day use? So we've identified those. If you are in the crowd and you are a property owner, I hope that, you know, more than likely we have spoken. If we haven't, I promise you I've been trying to get in touch with you. And like, to echo Jen's sentiments, I'd love to continue to help you. Where we can help you is giving you a lot of that data that we provided to Brian and to the mayor, helping you to understand how you can use that going forward. And then also, if you're not actively leasing for selling or trying to market your space, we are more than welcome to help build out marketing materials for you to do that. So we hope to continue to be an asset to you, and we hope that you can see that kind of two-pronged process that our company provides with the downtown redevelopment and the downtown strategic plan complements that and those same efforts that are going towards your national retail corridor. And you're, you know, I think the timing is absolutely right. You have so much growth. Obviously, we all know that there's growth coming out from the Nashville area. We know there's been some exciting things happen, whether it be a country music video and things of that nature that have happened over the last year plus. And we've just really seen that there is a lot of interest, whether it be in the downtown or in the national retail corridor. And for that reason, we're more than welcome to continue to help you there. And I know Harris is looking forward with her team to continue to make those national retail efforts in year two. But to Jen's point, we're happy to answer any questions. And Brian, if you want to, you know, ask any questions or open it up to the floor, we're more than welcome to answer anything.
I would like to bring a few things to point. One, as you said, for the benefit of folks in the audience and who may be watching online who don't understand how this all came about, retail strategies their expertise, and this is all they do, is they liaise and try to draw in retail businesses into communities and help those businesses get settled. They've had great success in many other communities that we all go through on a daily basis around Middle Tennessee. And the mayor and I and Ms. Knutson were fortunate enough to be given a grant through the state of Tennessee. Retail Strategies is coupled with the state of Tennessee to put on what they call the Retail Academy. And it's a 2 or 3 day, I can't remember, 2 or 3 day course in downtown where they put us through these classes, giving us tools to try to draw in business to our community, because we're sort of hidden here. We're sort of isolated in a pocket. We're not on a main highway or freeway. We're sort of off the beaten path. And Lacey Beasley, the president of the company, made point that none of the commercial properties in this community were on LoopNet, which is the national MLS for commercial properties. somebody in California or somebody in Washington State that is a CEO or somebody in a corporation that's looking to locate a location in Middle Tennessee, they're thumbing through the internet. They're not driving around town. And if they don't see us on the internet, how will they know we exist? Well, Retail Strategies helps us become more visible and more appealing through this data package that they put together. Now, the mayor and I were both knocked down and almost speechless at the focused laser data that they had put together in this package. And it was just the teaser package. They can tell through cell phone data coupled where they coincide with credit card data, how long you spend in Piggly Wiggly shopping, how much money you spend, how far you drive to get there. They don't know your name, but they do know the data of that you're driving 6.8 miles, you're spending on average $39.10 or whatever. And they use that data along with many other variables that they put into this package. And they can tell this company, okay, this particular location is perfect for Burger King, but McDonald's would never look at that because it doesn't fit their company criteria, their dynamic that they look for. This is an AM side of the road, so a Hardee's would locate there, but a Hardee's would never be on the PM side of the road. Their biggest number is breakfast, so they're going to look at the AM side. And I'm speaking in layman's terms, and I know I'm not 100% correct, but at least you get the gist of it. So I know in these endeavors or in this work that Jen and Elliott have been doing, and they came up with the mayor and I and members of industrial development. They walked this entire downtown area on foot, and we talked about each and every building and the background and history of the owners and the tenants and the success or lack thereof of our town. And I know Elliott has reached out to many of these property owners and tried to get permission from them to allow Retail Strategies to market their properties. Doesn't cost them anything, just allow us to make your property available to these particular businesses that might be interested in this location. So Elliott, could you talk a little bit about that effort? Because I know you went through quite a bit of effort there and you made a lot of phone calls and a lot of contacts. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think, sure. I appreciate that, Brian. And, really what we've tried to do is basically talk to the property owners like I was identifying where are those kind of lowest hanging fruit, we'll call it. Where are those sites that, once again, if someone locally wanted to open a business, where could they do it? And if you're one of those property owners, Ms. Knudsen, you talked about, she has a great vacancy or had a great vacancy. How do we best capitalize on that? And obviously, I'm not sure who all's in the crowd, but there are some other great vacancies and some great property owners in town. And we know there's been some businesses, for example, the bakery that was in town. How do we bring that back? Now, when we focus on downtown, I want to make it clear that we're trying to focus on those local businesses, those regional businesses. And now certainly it takes time. It takes that right business owner to come to Hartsville or that already lives in Hartsville and wants to open that business. So it does take time to identify that user that's going to be successful, because my efforts are all in vain if a tenant doesn't, comes in and isn't successful, because then you have to start all over and then you've got a negative closure that you've got to try to combat that story as well. So we have lots of data, Brian, like you mentioned, that we've tried to embolden anyone who is willing to take it, and give them those stories and give them that data piece, so that they can feel strongly about what would be the right types of uses. Now, with my real estate knowledge and whatnot, I'm trying to identify based off of site criteria of different types of users. So a hardware store or a coffee shop or whatever it may be, where is the best space for them? A lot of times what we have in downtown specifically is a vacancy and someone, takes 8,000 square feet and they don't really need it. And ultimately they're paying too much in rent. They've got too much overhead. They've got too much space. It doesn't feel right. So how do we pair that all together? So one of the other things I don't want to be lost on is the last thing that I'm trying to do is get a national retailer to move into your downtown. Your downtown is special, it's historic, it's unique, and it needs that local use. McMurray, Broadway, those areas are perfect for national retail, and that is your national retail corridor. So talking about properties and making outreach to property owners, that's really it. And then talking about marketing it, how do we make sure that someone, if it's not you, it's the property owner, how do we make sure that you are either locally or from a regional standpoint having someone broker that property? Because if there's not a for sale sign in your window, if there's not a for lease sign in your window, or something at the very least that says available, no one knows how to get in contact with you unless they're able to go talk to the mayor or go talk to you, Brian. They don't know that there's a vacancy there, or they don't know that there's even an opportunity there. A lot of times it may be considered just to be a storage space, something along those lines. So that's where we're here to help. We want to continue to help you with that. And we've had a lot of success in having conversations with all of you, hopefully with most of you, and we want to continue that. Now, where we want to take it the next step and going forward is if you don't have a sign and you need something, we're willing to make that sign for you. So going forward, we are happy to create their sign that says there's opportunity here and put it in that window, and do it strategically, of course, but make sure that people know when they come to Hartsville, and we all know there's people who have acquired residential properties in the area and commercial properties over the last year. How do we make sure that those are getting its highest and best use? And that is kind of the next step from the downtown real estate piece.
So I'd like to also talk about.
Did I answer your question, Brian?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. I'd like to also talk about the data package that you put together. They put together a comprehensive data package, and if anyone watching or here would like to see that package, I'd be happy to share. But it is truly impressive. You think in the old school of thinking, you use traffic count or residential rooftops to drive some of your desirability for the place particular businesses. I know in a former corporation that I used to run, we almost dynamically used rooftops within a 5-mile radius or a 3-mile radius to drive whether we were interested in that particular location. But they use so much more information than what we use. They have access to so much more information and data that makes it laser focused. And these folks that have these large multi-unit, multi-location franchises, they have figured out a particular formula that's magic for their company. So they're looking for a place or property or a community that fits in that box. These folks from Birmingham, Retail Strategies, are on a first name basis with most of these companies. They know that, let's say, and I'm hypothetical, that Domino's is not really interested in expanding in Middle Tennessee right now, on the east side of Tennessee. But Marco's Pizza is aggressively looking for small rural communities. Burger King has kind of pulled their teeth in a little bit on expanding, but Wendy's is aggressively spending money on new locations. Or maybe we can't get a new franchise owner from Wendy's, but we can approach an existing franchise owner in a surrounding town like Lebanon or Gallatin that would be happy to open another location. And they have been instrumental in being able to educate us to our possibilities for these expansions. Also, because they have these working relationships and they attend these trade show meetings on a regular basis with it's a ISCA, Shopping Centers Association.
ICA.
Okay, forgot the acronym, but because they do this on a daily basis, we are being represented as a community, even though we really don't realize it, because they are out there mingling and having daily interactions with these companies. I would like also to mention that the mayor put together a very comprehensive inventory list, all the properties in our community that were available for sale, available for rent, or potentially available for sale or rent that, you know, they would entertain. They were not aggressively marketing, but they would entertain an offer or a deal if somebody were to come to them. We have a lot of properties that are owned by out-of-state owners. We have properties owned by older owners that they're really not terribly active anymore, and the properties are just sitting dormant, and they're not going to get out there and aggressively market. So Retail Strategies has really gone around the block for us trying to get these properties listed. The mayor's inventory list gave them a place to start, and they were able to contact a lot of these owners and hopefully find out what our accurate inventory list is. And then going into year 2, as Harris's team takes over, they can take this inventory list, they could take this data package that they put together in the first part of the year, and then start really going out and calling on these businesses and try to interest somebody in looking or examining Hartsville. So, you know, it's fishing. You're baiting your hook and you're throwing it out there and looking for the right fish. If you have the right lure, you're gonna get the right fish. But if you don't know what you're fishing for, we're just kind of all spinning in the dark, and these folks are experts and they know what they're fishing for. Elliott, unless there's anything else you'd like to add to year 1, I'm going to turn it over to Harris and let her talk about year 2 now.
Yeah, Brian, I appreciate everything you said. You know, the last thing I just want to leave you with is we've really enjoyed, you know, developing the strategic plan for your downtown. We really think that everything is incremental and implementable, and we really think that there is so much positive happening in your community. You mentioned having local property owners. That is a positive to me. That is an asset, and ultimately it's about telling your story. And whether it's the downtown piece of your community or the national piece of your community, we've really enjoyed, you know, helping to find that story within your community and promoting you know, the attributes you have, the assets you have, and we want to build upon those local property owners and those local opportunities, and then have it complement with those local property owners where there may be national opportunities. So you have a great community. Brian and Mayor Chambers, you're both, you know, wonderful leaders for your community, and we've enjoyed working with both of you. You know, I wish we could say that it was that way with all the communities we work with, but with each of your leadership, it makes it more viable for a lot of this to actually happen. And we look forward to seeing that come to life over the next year to 5 years and whatnot. So it's been a great opportunity.
Well, I'll take over from there. And Elliott and Jen, thank you so much for the overview of what our relationship has been in the past with Brian and Mayor Chambers. And Brian, frankly, you've given a very thought out overview of who we are and what we do and what we plan to do moving forward. So you've definitely touched on a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about here briefly, but I do have a small presentation to show everyone. So let me share my screen and make sure that this will work correctly for everyone. Can you see this correctly on the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Okay, well, yeah. So as Elliott and Jen were able to introduce how our partnership began and their relationship with Hartsville and Truesdale County, as they said, you know, I'm kind of coming into play now to take over and to focus more on that national retail corridor and to use Elliott as a resource for all of his connections with the property owners so far, and just expand our team so that we can move forward into working on national retail recruitment in year 2. And so as all of you remember, we have a process by which we analyze your community and how we formulate a targeted and direct plan for retail recruitment. And at this point, me and my partner, John Ruzick, plan to revisit your market with a new lens, focusing more so on the national retail corridor, on opportunity gaps, and connecting those property owners with local brokers and to our contacts on a national retail platform. And we utilize a lot of the research that Jen and Elliott have conducted, working with Elliott to have this property owner list and make these connections. We use that to tailor our research on the national recruitment for the community. So let's go through a little bit of what we've learned so far. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to stop me. It's just kind of an overview to get started. When the average person Googles Hartsville or Truesdale County, this is what they see. We kind of call this the Wikipedia version of your county, an area that's within these lines with a population of around 11,000 people, about an hour east of Nashville. But when speaking to retailers, they don't see it that way. They're not really concerned about the population of the taxpaying citizens. They're more concerned about the population of consumers. City boundaries are often arbitrary to a consumer because they look at their shopping experience more along the lines of convenience and distance to the retail center. So for this reason, we analyze the market on a 3, 5, and 10-mile radius ring, as you can see in this image, and a 5, 10, 15-minute drive time. And then from that, we pull demographics after creating those rings and drive times to show us some information that's more relevant that we can present to the retailer. And it helps us describe your market in a more positive and robust way. So you can see here with the projected annual growth is very strong, around 5%, median household income, home value, daytime population, etc. And then also, as Brian had mentioned earlier, the mobile data collection that we can use. And this, it's a little big brotherish, but it's a great way to help us understand the number of consumers that are coming into the area, where they're going once they come into the area, how much time they spend, how much money they spend, and so on. So we like to draw a geofence around a popular retailer. And in this case, we chose the Piggly Wiggly on McMurray Boulevard. And as Brian mentioned, every time a person is coming into that area, we are notified of where they go, how much they spend, how much time they spend, and where they're going back to really get a better understanding of who's coming into your market. And this is a very good way for us to represent your community to retailers and real estate directors. And then we compile all this information, draw a customized trade area for Truesdale County that we believe most accurately encompasses the core base of consumers that are likely to come shop, eat, spend time in your community. So within that trade area, this is some of the data that we found. So as you remember, Wikipedia would say that your community is a population of around 11,000, but in actuality, there's around 18,000 people coming into your market on a regular basis to shop, eat, spend money, etc. Again, highlighting the 5% growth rate that you see, that's very strong when talking to retailers. They usually look for around a 3 to 4% growth rate. And then these next slides, I'm going to give a little more breakdown of who these consumers are and just some more information on the data demographics. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly just to spare everyone's time, but this information will be shared with you all after the meeting. So if you have any questions, just feel free to stop me. But as we said, inside of that trade area, we can break all of those demographics down. Here it's a breakdown based on race. Here's number of households, size of households, median household income, household unit value and estimated occupancy, household type. You can see that you're primarily a community made up of family households. We also look at daytime population within your community and the breakdown of that in terms of employment, average incomes, and educational attainment. So we show you all of this information, not to overwhelm anyone with just a big stack of data, but more so to highlight the depth of analysis we use, all to help us really understand what it is, what is so special about Hartsville, Truesdale County, who your constituents are, and that also helps us curate a retailer prospect list that we feel will have the highest likelihood of success within your market. And what you see now on the screen is an overview of the Esri Tapestry segmentation. Jen and Elliott presented this to y'all back in February, but I'll spend a few minutes just reviewing the benefit of this system. So basically, Esri uses location data to study behavioral traits of individuals across the United States. They use 67 different segments, such as single versus family households, home value, income, personality traits, age, sex, gender, etc. All of these different factors to classify each community into stereotypical profiles. And what you see on the screen is an overwhelming chart of each of these classifications. But Truesdale County, we've been able to narrow that down into your top 2 segmentation profiles, which are Southern Satellites and Small Town Simplicity. And what those are basically is the Southern Satellites are categorized as slightly older population of settled married couples who are employed in various industries such as manufacturing, healthcare, retail trade, and construction. These consumers are very cost aware, prefer outdoor activities and do-it-yourself home projects. And the next profile is Small Town Simplicity, which are classified as down-to-earth people of young families and senior households who are bound by community ties. They're also price-conscious consumers, very community-oriented. This obviously may not reflect everyone individually within the community, but for the Truesdale County as a whole, the average consumer falls under these lifestyle categories. There's an Esri website that takes a much deeper dive into these classifications. If anyone wants to review that further, I'm happy to send a link over to Brian. For anyone, you just Google it online if you'd like to. And then once we understand who your consumers are, we want to understand what it is they want, what it is they're buying, and which retailers we really need to focus on to target those needs. And one of our stronger research points that we use to uncover what areas of the market capture the most consumer spending is our gap analysis study. Through this, we also look at retail leakage, which is a term that we use to see how much money is leaving the market and retailers it's being spent on outside. And we try to use that to figure out how we can bring those retailers inside of the market to encourage those dollars to be spent at home.
Harris, I'd like to stop you right there for a minute. Can you go back to that last slide, the gap? I would like everybody to look at that number. $137 million in retail dollars are leaving our community. How much of that do you have to grasp to have a successful business? That is a tremendous amount of money that is available for capture in our community if we can get some businesses in here. How does that represent? Is that a yearly period, Harris?
Yes, it's categorized based on a yearly analysis, and we can further break that down here on this slide as well. These that gap can be characterized down into these specific focus categories, the ones that need the most attention. Now, keep in mind for the general merchandise store, you see that's 23 million. The average grocery store makes, I believe it's around 50,000, and I could correct me if I'm wrong on that number. But all of this is to say that there will always be a leakage in the market. Everyone will always be traveling into different areas for one reason or another. But this study just helps us really categorize who needs to be focused on for us to start our recruitment to come into the market, and kind of which retailers we can begin from the beginning that we see is not there that we want to bring. And another strong factor that we use after looking at the gap analysis is by looking at some peer markets in the region who we believe are similar. These are not reflective of the market as a whole, but rather a 10-minute drive time from that chosen retail comparison point. Ours of which is the Piggly Wiggly. We use Walmart and other major wholesale stores in that fact, but for this one it was the Piggly Wiggly. And we use this as an additional metric just to understand who's similar to y'all on a demographic standpoint. And then we use these markets, spend a lot of time looking at them and noting the retailers that they have, so we can try to emulate that into your community. And as you had mentioned, just to bring those retailers that are not in your county are doing successful in some neighboring counties, and see how we can get them over to y'all to get those dollars and save them so they can be spent at home. And then through all these various demographics, data points, board analysis, all of this data that I've been going through earlier, we have come to the conclusion that our 6 top focus categories that we plan to put our initial focus into as we move forward into year 2 are restaurants, mainly fast casual, quick service restaurants. Those are the ones that are showing lots of expansion right now. General merchandise, automotive, clothing, grocery, and hardware. And the next couple slides are just a breakdown by category and a couple of examples that we plan to reach out to. This is by no means the exhaustive list, just some of the ones that we plan to have on our radar as we begin. Here are a few for hardware: Ace Hardware, Tractor Supply, Harbor Freight, clothing, general merchandise, so there's our initial list. As I said, by no means an exhaustive list, just some of the retailers that we have on our radar that through our void analysis we saw was not currently in your market that we think would best fit and would be very good for us to reach out to. But then it's also important to us that we look at these retail categories that are actually expanding. At the end of the day, it's our job to match what the data said to what is actually realistic. And, you know, the pandemic has caused a nationwide shift in the real estate industry. Those who stayed alive are the ones who were able to adapt, and those who did not adapt are suffering. Obviously, office supplies, children's apparel, video stores, bookstores, those just really aren't expanding. And while some data reports might come back to us saying that there's a void or a need for those, you know, we use our retail knowledge to know that it's not worth our time to reach out to those. We really want to focus on the ones that are growing, that we know have potential into coming into your market. And then, you know, a strong value that we believe really differentiates retail strategies from our competitors is the hands-on approach that we give. As you mentioned, Brian, Elliott and Jen, they came out to see you and Mayor Chambers. They walked the community with you. They spent time looking at all of the properties, connecting with the property owners. And now as we move into year 2, that's where I will step into play. Me and my partner, John, we plan to come into the market as well and really lay eyes on everything, identify those strategic and underutilized real estate assets that we feel like will be best used for national recruitment. Not so much downtown, but more so focusing on that national retail corridor of McMurray and Broadway. And find just any opportunities that we may have missed while doing our in-house research that we're conducting right now. And we use all of that information to build out a property catalog of all of these sites in your market to introduce ourselves and keep track with the property location, property owners, contact information, size. We really want to develop a rapport with all of these property owners. And as Elliott mentioned earlier, I'm looking forward to having that introduction and to seeing what we can do with these properties that may be underutilized to help make them into their highest and best use, and see what we can do about the possibility of connecting these property owners with national brokers and real estate directors and developers so that we can bring these retailers into the market. Because this is when we play matchmaker. As I said, we want to connect the dots with those directors, tenant reps, franchisees, to all the property owners and local brokers in the market, and really just fill that void and fill that gap and act as a liaison to make these connections. Because at the end of the day, what we're looking for is home run real estate. You know, we're looking for real estate that has good parking, high visibility, easy access, high traffic counts, high quality co-tenants, and convenience to the local consumer. And as Elliott mentioned earlier, excuse me, another tool that we offer is connecting with those property owners to create personalized marketing flyers for their space. This is an example, something that we do free of cost, just within our partnership. We can, here's a few flyers that we've made for some of our clients in the past. And this is just a way for us to help these property owners that may not know what to do with their property, and really give them exposure and help them market their property onto these national retailers. And also, our marketing team is currently in the process of creating a marketing flyer for Truesdale County that will look similar to what you see here. This is something that we use in all of our conferences, as they had mentioned earlier. And this is also something that belongs to you all. So you'll be able to use it however you feel advantageous to market your community and to just show all of your data and everything that the community has to offer. It includes demographic data, images, and a few other focus points that we use to get initial reaction from retailers. And at these conferences that we go to, sometimes we only get about 1 minute, maybe max, with some of these brokers and developers. So this is just a great quick one-pager that we can give to these connections that we have, so that they can take it home with them and really see the highlights of your community. On the back side, we'll have a map that's highlighting all of the major retailers in the area as well. Another thing that we really find very beneficial are retail webinars that we will send to you as we come. All of these are open invitation for anyone that would like to join. They're very beneficial to stay up to date on current retail trends, predictions, changes in the industry, and so on. And again, as we've mentioned, conferences are a great way to market your community, to make these connections and bring attention to these developers and brokers to get them to start looking at Hartsville and Truesdale County. So to wrap everything up, I know I went fairly quickly, but I just want to ensure all of you that this is an ongoing effort. We live and breathe retail, as Elliott and Jen has spent this past year focusing on downtown and making those connections. They're still here to work with John and I as we move forward on a national standpoint. We're here to act as a liaison and bring success to Truesdale County and aid in all that we can. We continue to send updates periodically and let you know who we've reached out to and what we have going on. And likewise, we invite you to keep us informed of things that you see happening in the community. As we like to say, that we're the retail experts, y'all are the local experts. So you get to see and spend time with these property owners every day. Y'all really see what's going on in the market. And we would love to just have this in open communication so that we can work together just to bring the best success into the community. We also, as I said, will continue to report on any expansion and industry trends. And we also provide on-demand reporting as one of our services. If anyone is ever in need of any sort of data reports or looking for information in the industry, reach out to us. That's something that we have at our disposal, and we would love to give that to you, no extra cost. There's no need to reach out or pay for any sort of service to try and find this data information. We would love to find that for you and just help in any way that we can. So that's all I have so far. That's kind of an overview of just the data that we all compile to get the best information on your community, and then our progress and process moving forward on how we will represent you and try and bring more retail into Hartsville, Truesdale County. So is there any questions that I can answer?
I think I can speak for everybody in the audience that, that's a great presentation. It's very slick. Presentation with a lot of data, and if anybody in the audience or anybody that's watching tonight would like a copy of that where you can study it more in depth, it's a lot to take in, please contact us and we'll be happy to share that with you, because it is fascinating to read, just like that leakage report. But I believe I can speak for everybody in here. we have one major question for you, Harris, and this is going to depend on your success in this endeavor. Can you get us a Waffle House? Because everybody in here just wants to go to Waffle House. If we had a Waffle House, we would be great. Now we might settle for Huddle House.
Well, I can assure you that we will do all that we can, and we have our connections in this industry and our team of retail all across retail strategies. You know, we're all hands on deck. We're very collaborative, and we really pride ourselves in that, and we'll use all of the resources that we can to just bring success, and more so to bring the success that in your community wants to see in the market. So please create an open communication channel, and I'm here, just like I said, just to act as a liaison and just to make those connections and to do everything I can to bring success for all of you.
Well, please, Harris, thank you so much for that presentation. We appreciate your time. It's very helpful. It helps the folks of the community understand where we're trying to go with this endeavor and where we're going forward, where we've been in the last year. Please thank Elliott and Jen, and tell Miss Lacey we said hello, and we appreciate it, and happy holidays. I would invite everybody in the audience or anybody who's watching who's interested in the wayfinding signs that Retail Strategies helped us obtain the grant. The mayor's been working on the artwork. It's beautiful, and it's really going to be colorful and helpful in our community. Please stop by and see the mayor. He's got the artwork on his tablet, and you can take a look at that. Please reach out to either the mayor or myself, and we'll share these data packages with you at any time. It's absolutely fascinating to read. It's data that you just didn't really ever conceive of. But Harris, thank you very much.
Absolutely, Brian. Thank you as well. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone. I'm so excited. I'm so thankful for this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. Tell Miss Lacey happy holidays.
I will. Happy holidays to everyone as well. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one more guest tonight we'd like to let speak. Don McGoy is part of the Patriot Group. That's what I call, in layman's terms, affectionately the Patriot Group. I think he has a more official name. But I'd like for Don to come up and speak at the podium. He has been aggressive, and his partner Dan back there, they are aggressively working every day to open manufacturing business in our community. And I would like to introduce you to Don McGoy and let you hear just a little bit of his story. And then he's going to update us on kind of where he is in his project right now, because we're really excited about having him. Don?
This button? Yeah. Okay. Thank you for having us tonight. We're really honored to be here. So what we're trying to do, in a brief overview, is bring some manufacturing to Hartsville and return what's become a vulnerability in our supply chains back to the United States. And in particular, this deals with small arms ammunition. So initially, our initial business model was to come here and make boxer primers for centerfire ammunition. And this is anybody who is a shooter or has any firearms at home, if you've noticed how difficult it is to get ammunition right now, the primary reason for that is primer capacity. And just as an indicator of how much interest there is in this, we have 2 purchase orders with ammunition manufacturers right now. And we have been in negotiations with a major defense supplier to make a different type of primer for our medium caliber rounds. In this case, it'd be for 30mm cannons. All of this has been outsourced overseas to the point that now the Defense Department, the defense industry, all the suppliers are very interested in having a domestic manufacturing capacity that can supply their larger scale operations. Right now, we've received backing from the USDA for 80% of our loans. We've been in negotiation over the past week. We've negotiated with 5 banks. 2 of the meetings had senior level, the U.S. Department of Agriculture members joining us, talking about how motivated they were for the project and how they were willing to advocate for us locally and then the Washington level. Since this is a large loan, it's going to have to go to Washington. And we've been talking to high net worth individuals and people who are interested in investing with us. And as of today, just before this meeting, we went to our construction team and had our second meeting where the engineer and the architect and the construction team were all in the room. And this one's it was another great meeting with a great team. And we are moving forward at a very good pace.
Don, tell us briefly a little bit about your background, your career, military. Tell us just briefly for the benefit of the folks that haven't heard your story.
Sure. So I was trying to get away without doing that. So I graduated from Texas A&M University. I'm originally from Texas. And I went to Texas A&M University because they had a 4-year military program that commissions officers. So I went through the Texas A&M, got my degree. My senior year, I was regimental commander of the Navy Marine Regiment. Had a career where I was lined up to go into the Navy. And I realized that the Navy wasn't for me, that being an officer wasn't the only way to lead. So I said, thank you, but no thank you. I walked down the street and I enlisted in the Army as an infantryman. And after I did that for a very good reason, I wanted to go into special operations. The Army has the largest special operations community. And I realized that no matter what job up here in special operations I aspired to, I couldn't get there unless I had a good foundation down here as an infantryman. So I joined the infantry. I was in the airborne infantry. I was in a Ranger unit. And then I went to Special Forces. When I went to Special Forces, they trained me as a Special Forces medic, which meant that I used to laughingly call myself a witch doctor because I knew how to do a lot of everything, but I didn't have any real credentials to do anything. So just before 9/11, I was actually preparing to go to medical school. 9/11 happened. The Army said, you're not going anywhere, because I was in kind of a shortage job. And I was in Special Forces for another 2 years after that because of the stop loss program. And then I got recruited to work for one of the intelligence agencies as a paramilitary operator, which meant that I was overseas a lot. I was in combat a lot, especially when they said there weren't boots on the ground, they weren't talking about our boots. And they asked me initially to do it for 5 years. And I looked up one day and I'd been doing it for 15. And I realized I better have a plan if I survived. I didn't expect to for a long time. I thought, well, this is just one of those things. The math is going to catch up with me eventually, and I'll be one of the guys that has a star on the wall and like all my friends. And then one day I realized, this could end and I could survive it, so I better have a plan. So I asked myself, what did old soldiers do in antiquity? What did Romans and Greeks do? The people we based our society off of. What did they do when they were too old to fight? Well, they came home and became leaders. So I went back to school. I got another undergraduate degree because I wanted to show them that old dogs could learn new tricks. And then I applied at Harvard, and I got accepted for a master's program at Harvard, where I had a master's in public administration, and my focus, or as they say in Harvard doesn't have majors, they have concentrations. My concentration was leadership, management, and development. And when I was there, I had the opportunity, I was very fortunate to be there. I'm still blessed for all the education that I've been able to participate in. And Harvard was a blessing, because one of the things I realized when I was there was that there were some assumptions I had made about leadership and more importantly, about business. I took a class at the business school, or I had some business school classmates in some of my classes as well. And one of the things that I kind of came away with from there was that I thought I was going to be walking into a place where everybody was training to play chess. and that this program produced grandmasters, and it does. But I noticed that a lot of people seem to be more focused on checkers than chess. And I say that because we are in a global economy and in a global environment where our enemies are our competitors in everything, from business to war. And to them, they don't see it any differently. And they see their ability to penetrate and make our supply chains vulnerable as a way to undermine us as a country, undermine our security, undermine our stability. And I decided at the end of it, when a lot of my classmates, are going forward to do jobs in government and trying to get elected positions, I said, I'm going to find something that needs to be done. I'm going to find a place to do it where people want jobs and opportunities. And I'm going to go do something that kind of takes some of this vulnerability away and brings some jobs and some capacity back to the United States. My wife said Tennessee. And once again, proving that I married my better half, she was right. This is the right place to be. So we moved here last year, and with my business partner, Dan DeClement, we have been working to bring 3 businesses to Tennessee. The first is our primer business. The second is we're looking at setting up a dielectric capacitor line. This is another strategic vulnerability for defense and electronic components. And the last thing we're looking at doing right now is, last night we had, I'm not giving away anything I'm not supposed to, right? Okay. Last night we had dinner with a member of the agriculture department at Middle Tennessee State, Dr. Tony Johnson. We have a research agreement with Middle Tennessee State, and we are looking at setting up an antibiotics factory in PowerCom to make penicillin and doxycycline, hopefully. The reason that is such a vital thing is, out of all the things I learned that should terrify us about some of our overseas competitors or outright enemies, is that one country has a stranglehold on our antibiotics right now. That country is the country that I believe they're in the top 2 of who we're most likely to fight next. That's the People's Republic of China. If the People's Republic of China cuts off our supply to antibiotics, we'll empty our pharmacy shelves in 14 days. That means that American soldiers who might be very well engaged in combat against the Chinese would be practicing 19th century medicine for the wounded. And tell us again, who's the largest single consumer of antibiotics in the United States? The DoD. They buy a lot of antibiotics, but one of the second would be farmers, ranchers. It's important to herds. I looked at the Chinese a lot. If you're a farmer or a rancher, you have a really tough job, and your margins, you are literally fighting Mother Nature, and your margins can be cut by the slightest change in some of the things that you need access to. For instance, the Chinese have a monopoly on folic acid, vitamin C. It's not a big deal for you and I because, we can get our vitamin C from orange juice or other things, but it's a very big deal. Industrial folic acid is a very big deal if you're a cattle rancher in Texas. As soon as the Chinese got control of the folic acid supply, they raised the price 600% in 1 year. Our ranch, the Cattle Association in Texas, took them to federal court over it. And the federal court said that the Sherman antitrust laws didn't apply because the Chinese are a state-owned government or a state-owned operation, and that the United States laws can't compel the People's Republic of China to alter their monopolistic practices. That's a problem. And luckily right now, we're not in the middle of a pandemic that's treated with antibiotics. So our goal is we're scaling up to these projects, putting together teams, building the relationships we need, finding the resources we need to eventually go from our primer factory to a dielectric factory, all the way up to an antibiotics factory.
So that's a wonderful business model, and we wish you all the luck and all the success in the world. But what does that mean to us? What kind of jobs are you going to bring here to our community, and how are you going to help our citizens elevate themselves into a better place?
Of course. I'm going to only speak about the one I'm most educated about. I'll let Dan speak to the dielectrics after this. But right now, our business plan for our primer plant would bring in around 60 jobs. The lowest paying job, that would be hiring everyone from a high school educated individual to a master's degree in chemistry. And our starting salary for the line employees, the machinists, the high school educated people, is going to be around $70,000 a year. That would be $25 an hour starting wage, and they'd get 50 hours a week. Be 4 10s, and the fifth 10 would be a time and a half, $32.50 with benefits. The whole goal here is to bring something to this community. We're not Walmart. We're not Amazon. We're not trying to bring warehouse jobs here, and we're not trying to bring something here that we're going to set up and drop and walk away from. We're coming into your community to partner with you so that we can, obviously, it's incumbent upon us to make a profit for our investors and to pay our bills. And of course, I'm an American capitalist. I would love to have a pile of money to go home and roll around in. But we're trying to do what we believe is the right thing to do. It's ethical. We need to bring manufacturing back here. Manufacturing jobs produce wealth. We're not setting up a CBD dispensary. We're not setting up some kind of fly-by-night business. We want something where people can come and work and have a career, and they can give their family a home, good health care, security, and we believe that that's the most important thing we can do here. Yes, sir.
Brian, what we're talking about here is stops leakage.
Country leakage, not necessarily.
People are driving from here to go to Gallatin, to Lebanon, to Murfreesboro, to Nashville to work. And they don't drive all the way back here and stop. They pick up their groceries on the way home. They do that on the way home and these other towns. So bringing in industry and manufacturing here to keep our citizens working here local will help them shop local. It also will bring people to work into this area from the surrounding counties, the surrounding towns versus just here. So this is exciting to hear. You're answering the question that I had. I was going to ask, hey, how many associates are we talking about? What kind of salaries are we talking about? So thank you.
The thing that excites me most about it is this particular community was essentially built off of blue collar workers. We're a blue collar community.
Yeah.
So bringing more blue collar jobs back to this community, especially very good paid, high skilled jobs, is exciting to me. There's a snowball effect. If you're working in Gallatin, then you're likely eating lunch in Gallatin. You might be eating breakfast for dinner. You're likely going to buy shoes in Gallatin, or you're going to find a doctor in Gallatin and go to have an hour doctor. So it's a snowball effect. So we feel like while 60 jobs is not huge, they're very well paid jobs, and they're jobs that we build a snowball. The band is already in the dielectric ceramic business. Did I say that?
So,
That's very technical. It's a lot of words.
how you doing, everybody? Dan DeClement. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Brian, for everything, Scott. So I run a piezoelectric. There's a test at the end. It's all in chemistry. Listen up. I run a piezoelectric factory. We're the only U.S. manufacturer of certain piezo materials used by the Navy. I was joking about the chemistry. But piezoelectric and dielectric materials are used in defense and aerospace, and we're also one of the few companies left in the country is making dielectrics for capacitors and for RF antennas. Really can't do that in the same facility where we're making the piezos because of cross-contamination of certain types of chemicals. That's why we're going to move that down here. But Brian, one of the things I wanted to say was that, bringing these are very technical jobs, and we on our firm have over 20 employees from PhD level down to high school level. But you're also creating a network and an infrastructure of technical jobs. And that's important. Because, people go, well, why can't I buy a TV made in the United States? Well, the reason you can't do it is that not that the individual things don't exist, it's the network doesn't exist. We've gutted it. And this helps put that back together. We're going to be making chemistry. This is all chemistry. Making the primer, anybody can make the case. It's brass. You do it on a machine. Anybody can make the bullet. It's on a press. It's a piece of lead. We all know what it is. But the chemistry, the hard part is the primer. That's the chemistry part. Dielectrics, it's chemistry. And, we do the penicillin, which we're going to do. It's chemistry, it's biology. What we're bringing here is not just good blue collar jobs, but we're creating a hub, and we're creating a technical hub. And that's important, because you're right. Those people do stay in your community. I'm moving here. It'll be my community too. He moved here. We have a third guy who we work with. He's leaving New York City to move here with us, to be part of the team. It really does create a community, and it keeps people here. I grew up in a very small town in South Jersey. We had the same problem. We lost the CBS record manufacturing company. That was the biggest employer in the town. People stopped listening to the records, in CDs. But having this network and growing this will bring in other technical things, because other suppliers will open in this area that we need. Excuse me? Exactly.
And that's another thing. We have a really, really fine school system. First part of the campus. Some of the best in the state. But if those young people are graduating, we're not repeating. So
Absolutely.
we can create some jobs, keep our fine students.
Absolutely. And it grows. I listened to your presentation for the, earlier. A lot of that stuff can't happen, or is easier to happen, as you have jobs, higher paying jobs, but you can also create a vision for the town. It's not about getting the Dollar General out on the interstate. You have a beautiful town. You have so much history in this town. It's gorgeous. And it could be, as these things progress, investment made into that, into your rich history. There's a lot that that you guys have all done. And you guys have taken on a lot. We're just trying to help. And we think that, some of these jobs do help the community. None of this is box filling.
We are very excited. And stop by there and some of us got opportunity to spend a lot of hours with you guys. Say I'm very honored to have you as citizens and show what possible. See if you do well. Walk around and get more money because but no, I'm a little bit of a history buff too. Henry Ford created the middle class in America by paying his workers more than anybody else. Because it reduced his turnover, it worked hard. So the mentality that we need to pay them less does receive benefit, receive the effects of that.
Well, and also you lose the skill sets. You pay the people a good wage and you allow them to move up. I have one guy that works for me, and I know you run a business, I'm sure you have similar stories. This guy is an ex-con. He started out making very minimum wage, basically cleaning. He's now running, him and another guy running a little production line for us. And he's making a lot more money. We gave him the opportunity to move up the scale. And those are the stories that you get with the business, but it's bringing people in and allowing those things to happen. These types of jobs have that mobility. Whereas if you're just filling boxes, you don't really have that mobility. fill a better box.
Well, and I'll say one last thing, I think Rick will agree with me, and I was like this whole thing. When you pay people less, it's hard to expect more. We all thrive about the fact that we can't get good service where we go, no matter what you do, you can't get somebody to do their job. You don't pay them, how could you expect that? When you pay them an adequate wage, then you can expect.
Yeah, because people are not, it's not a spreadsheet. People actually are people and they provide a service, and, it is a two-way street. If you treat your people well, they'll treat the business well. We all know that.
It creates a sense of competition. Pay well. You create a work atmosphere. And
Sure.
people want you. And then they will compete.
Sure, and you want, absolutely, but you also give them a path to move up upward mobility within the firm. You provide things like we provide education, reimbursement, things like that. People take advantage of that stuff, and it helps them.
Yeah. We're honored to have you. Thank you so much for showing up and
Thank you for having us.
telling us a little bit about your business, and we really appreciate it.
Good seeing you again. Thanks everyone.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
If anybody, I've said it 3 or 4 times, if you want the package, the data package, reach out to either the mayor or myself if we have it. Email it to you. It's all I can print. Please, if you see Dan or Don running around town, like feel at home and feel like you can help them in some way, let's help them, because I think ultimately their success is our success. I appreciate you guys coming out tonight. It's been kind of a rough week of weather, but appreciate you coming out. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Post up.